lot of people are living paycheck to paycheck. So yeah, you're right. It could happen to anybody, anytime, the blink of an eye.
When you're homeless for an extended period of time, it will start to tax your mental state.
The homeless population are actual people that do need something.
It wasn't, we want to do right by you and get you into a place. We want to get you out of the shelter. We just want you out of our hair.
Do you feel when you get a handout, does it like, I don't know, dehumanize you or anything? Does it feel negative?
And get that second chance to turn their life around. Everybody makes mistakes.
Welcome to another Kitchen Sink Microscopy. I'm Casey Rochford, and we would really love it if you subscribed and liked and shared and all that good stuff. What do you got for us today, Eric?
Well, I thought we'd have a conversation about the topic of homelessness, and it so happens we have a guest on the show. His name's Rob, or Robert, however you want to go by. He was homeless for a time and worked his way out of it, and he's doing a lot better now. So I thought we'd hear what he has to say, hear his story, maybe ask a few questions. And yeah, so why don't you say hi, Rob?
Hi, everybody. Thank you for having me on the show.
Yeah.
Good to have you. Good to see you again.
Yep.
So we might as well jump right into it. How long were you homeless, and like what were the driving factors that kind of led up to that?
Well, I worked for a while, lost my job. City of Lakewood purchased the apartment complex that I was residing in and shut it down. Basically, they had served several search warrants trying to find meth labs, never found any, and it was their last-ditch effort to try to shut it down. Third one was almost expired. They brought in the fire department, did a impromptu inspection, shut us down, and the city got their hands on the property and closed it down permanently. In conjunction with losing my job, I had nothing saved up for moving to another place and wasn't able to get into a job. So wound up homeless.
So can you maybe move a little bit closer to, because I think it was kind of cut out a little bit there,
okay.
But we got most of it, I think. So I just want to make sure all the audio's in there.
So
go ahead.
So if I caught all that, basically your apartment complex got kind of like drug busted, and
pretty much, yeah. The problem was that they never found anything. They had reports of activity there, but never found it. So,
wow. So, what were those first few days like, where you were like, "Oh shit, I've got nowhere to stay"?
Pretty much, it was, let's see how much of my stuff I can cram into a storage unit, paying with my unemployment, and basically made my way back to Tacoma and was like, okay, how do I deal with it? Came across other people, and they were like, well, you can go here and get a breakfast, you can go here and sign up for a bed for a night, and slowly worked my way into that routine.
Ah, so yeah, I was going to ask, like, how did you most often acquire food? Was there like a pretty good schedule with kitchens that offered food, or
Amongst the homeless for Tacoma, there's no way you can go hungry if you're homeless in Tacoma. There are several facilities that serve meals, breakfast, lunch, dinner, not to mention volunteers that will stop off on various other facilities like homeless medical clinic. They'll hand out sandwiches and oranges, stuff like that, coffee at set times on certain days. So yeah, they're if you're starving and you're homeless in Tacoma, you're doing something wrong.
Well, that's good to hear. I think a lot of people probably don't realize that those kinds of institutions are in place, and if you can volunteer, I would urge you to do so. I've done it myself. It's really it's a nice thing to do, to give back to humans. So
Yeah, definitely, I agree with that.
yeah. So, like, speaking of like misconceptions people might have, like, what kind of things did you witness in the homeless community that might, I don't know, surprise people?
That many of the homeless are not drug addicts or mentally unstable. Uh, with our current situation in income brackets and the cost of living, average people can wind up homeless and right out of the blue. So a lot of them wind up becoming homeless, and they're like, "What do I do?" They're not mental cases. They're There's a
Like,
portion of the homeless community that is mental. There are a portion that are drug addicts, alcoholics. Many of them become this way because of being homeless. They don't always start out that
Yeah. Well, yeah. I mean, I believe it. I've never come like dangerously close to being homeless, but I relied on food banks and things like that, and food stamps and all that stuff for a while, and it was scary to think that, like, one little disaster or medical issue, and I would be, and um
yeah,
I think there's I think a lot of people have these like ideas about what to do about homelessness, and there's like maybe some political ideology behind it. So did you have certain ideas about like what to do to fix it before you were actually homeless that maybe changed after your experience?
honestly. When I Before I became homeless, I never thought about it. I'm like every other person. You never stop and think, I'm what do I do when I become homeless? Because we all believe that that day will never come. But it can strike anybody anywhere, and don't think about it until it happens. And then when it happens, you're like, oh my God, what do I do? Most people don't plan for being homeless because become complacent at times, and we get comfortable with our 9 to 5 job and paying bills and having a roof over our head. So when all of a sudden that's all taken away, you're left shell shocked. So there's not really much planning ahead or really thinking about it other than, oh, I feel bad for somebody. Never see it coming for you.
Right.
yeah. And the thing is, a lot of really in this country, there's most people have almost nothing in savings, no plan, nothing in savings, and a lot of people are living paycheck to paycheck. So yeah, you're right. It could happen to anybody, anytime, a blink of an eye, and we don't really think about it. So yeah.
Yeah, the middle class is almost gone entirely. It's it's like you either have money in savings and you're ready for an emergency, or you don't. Like
Yeah.
it's getting scary. But I've known some people who chose to be homeless. Like they lived in a box truck or a van or something, and they just did it for like, I don't know, like the nomad lifestyle, or to save money on crazy rents or something. But like from a health and safety standpoint, having been in that lifestyle of like living outside, or like all that stuff, do you think that's like advisable for someone to do? Like, I mean, with all the
Honestly,
rising rent costs and stuff.
I would have to say no, it would not be advisable. Many of the homeless will take what little money they get and they'll buy an RV. They park it on a city street because there's no place else to park it. City will tow it.
Yeah.
They now have to either find a way to get it out of impound or buy another one. Box trucks can often be the same thing. And then you have the whole, people see this vehicle sitting out. It's a likely target to be broken into. What happens when they break in? You're the one in there.
Yeah.
Risk getting hurt or killed. Honestly, if you want to go that route, there are ways. You could purchase an RV and find an RV lot. Rent for an RV spot is actually a lot cheaper than renting an apartment. Pay
Yeah.
utilities, you know, basically you can get by on a minimum wage job and not be, homeless. But as far as like living out of a box van or something, just out on the street, I wouldn't advise it. There's a lot of risk, a lot of chance for violence towards you. Yeah, it's not something that I would recommend. I've known people too that did that, and time again, they get their RV impounded and go get another one, park it someplace, and then you're constantly being harassed. You need to move this RV, this van. People need to move.
Yeah. It's not permanent at that point, Yeah. Hmm.
Yeah, and I guess I can kind of understand that, because word might get around that it's like a friendly place to stay, and there might be like a congregation of sorts that would impede their business or something. So like I get it from that angle, but it is sad that like you can't even make do with a car in a lot of cases, because you're just going to get harassed.
Not just by the average people, your the neighbors around you. It's the authorities that are going to harass you too. So
Yeah.
you got it coming from two sides.
Yep. Um, so like I know you mentioned, you were homeless in Tacoma, Washington, and there was a lot of really good resources, like you didn't have to worry about going hungry and all that stuff. Were there any other difficulties that you found resources for to mitigate, to make things a little easier on you, that might be a good life hack for someone who's facing this, or is going through this right now?
Many times they have like get-togethers where somebody can sit there and acquire like sleeping bags, backpacks, clothing. Uh, they used to have this thing called the Friday Night Feed, which would be a bunch of volunteers that would come out and get food, hot food, and other essentials like that. Unfortunately, a lot of these organizations are limited on what they can do because of nonprofit or whatnot. They don't have a lot of money coming in, so their resources are limited. The city often can issue bus passes, a monthly pass, but they can only issue so many. So with the growing homeless problem, which is more of a side effect than a problem, where do they get the resources?
Yeah, and I just want to I want to break in real quick to mention that, if you have the means and even just a little bit of extra stuff or money, I think it's a really good cause to donate your time, or because even if you don't have money, everybody has a little bit of time. So uh, I think it's our duty to contribute to these organizations and do what we can to help people.
Yeah, in Seattle, near the University of Washington, there's one of those old newspaper box things, like, Eric, you helped me on my route.
Yep. Yep. Oh, I remember.
And it was modified as like a depository for socks, especially in like the winter time. Like, um, it was encouraged to go and put like extra socks in there that you didn't need anymore. And I mean, everybody gets socks for Christmas. Like, I had piles. I had a big fat grocery bag bursting at the seam full of socks, and I was like, I'm gonna put that in the box.
Yeah.
I'm not wearing.
Well, that's the
Just
thing.
little
Like,
things like that,
a lot of people, we kind of take for granted the things that we have so much abundance of things. And there are so many people out there that don't have anything, or if they do have something, it's very, very little. And so I definitely encourage people to give where they can. I think it's a very good thing. And I do it all the time when I have anything extra.
Yeah, I think you've done more than most people do.
Yeah, probably. But I still feel like it's not enough. But that's okay.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I
So,
mean, he put up with me for a short period of time when I was homeless.
Yeah. Yeah. You.
Stay with him for a while, and I did what I could to contribute.
Yeah.
And, there were times when I wasn't able to, pay over with cash, so I did what I could.
Yeah. Yeah. You were my roommate for a
Yeah.
while, and yeah, that was a good time. Yeah.
Yep. It's still technically couch surfing, and couch surfing is a form of homelessness.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Couch surfing. That's actually there's a website, I think couchsurfing.org or .com or something. It's all about that. People traveling around. Actually, in fact, some people use it as a form of travel. Like, you want to see the world, but you don't have a lot of money. Well, you sign up for that, and it's sort of like, it's kind of like eBay, where you develop sort of it's akin to the buyer.
Reputation.
Yep, reputation based. And so you develop a reputation of being like a safe person to have in a house, and people take you in and you stay with them for however long, and they show you around and stuff. It's pretty cool. And maybe that's a solution to that. And we really should get into solutions, actually. But I know, Casey, you're kind of leading the interview here, so you probably have more questions.
yeah. I mean, this could kind of go towards that direction, but I just thought it might be interesting to hear like what steps you had to take to get out of that situation.
Well, I was homeless for a while, and finding a job is hard, really hard.
Yeah.
For me, I just happened to luck out. My sister worked at a facility that I can't really name or anything because of I don't want to violate any HIPAA laws. But he contacted me, said they needed a dishwasher like right then. So I went in, interviewed, got the job, and began the process of saving. And at the time, the city of Tacoma started requiring homeless shelters to provide a housing program. Basically, they encourage you to get a job, and then they start trying to help you find a place. Problem is, they don't have the access to low income housing. So they're just sending you wherever, and oh, here's a micro 2-bedroom apartment we're cramming 5 guys into. We want to throw you in there as well. So I refused to go that route. Continued saving. They told me, well, since you're not making enough, you need to get a second job. I was like, well, I'm not eager to do that, because the time that I had spent homeless, it was taking a toll on my mental state. It was becoming more and more difficult to be around people, because I was
Oh,
around
I
people
imagine.
24/7.
Yeah,
Don't get
why don't you explain a little bit about that situation so people understand? Because I don't know if a lot of people really are aware of what that's like, where you were, the circumstances, things like that.
Yeah, when you're homeless for an extended period of time, it will start to tax your mental state. Uh, Many people just give in to depression. They become drug addicts. They become alcoholics. Other people, it tends to make their mental illness worse. Others, they start developing issues. Like I was homeless for an extended period of time, and when you go for months, years, where you're constantly being surrounded by people 24/7, 7 days a week, it takes a toll on you.
Oh
And
yeah,
you have no peace and quiet. You have no privacy. You're sharing a shower room with 10, 20 other guys. It becomes a lot. And they wanted to put me into a situation where I'd be sharing a micro 2-bedroom apartment with 5 other guys. And I
good.
explained to them that I can't do that. I'm at the verge of, having a mental meltdown. And but the thing is, their program is still in its infancy, and they kept pushing. It wasn't, we want to do right by you and get you into a place. We want to get you out of the shelter. We just want you out of our. So I saved up. I was aiming for an RV. I was going to go for renting an RV spot, but due to my age, that really limited the RV parks that I could go into. Most of them are 55 plus.
Mm.
So I wound up taking the money I had. I applied for an apartment. I was signed up for several of the low income housing apartments, which take 6 months to a year to even be reviewed for. I managed to get into the apartment I put money down on, and that pretty much wiped out what I did save up.
Hmm. Wow.
Hey. Uh, yeah, I guess that probably should lead us into maybe a discussion about like what do you think would be the best like plan of attack for trying to alleviate this issue for as many people as possible. I know you can't really fix it 100% overnight or anything, but like baby steps. What do you think is like the first thing that really needs to be done that isn't being done?
Well, like you said, it's not a one fix for everyone. Uh, you'd have to have different avenues. For instance, many of the people with mental illness, dementia, whatever, uh, the government gives them money, so that they can get a place. The government could open apartment type facilities where these people could, receive a certain level of monitoring, make sure they maintain their medications, continue to take their medications, because often that was an issue with many of the mentally disabled people that would have, dementia or hallucinations or whatever. They would, here's money, here's your drugs, put you in an apartment, and then nobody's monitoring.
Mm.
So they wind up, oh, I don't need my meds anymore. They're right back to me. A government run facility would work for them. That way the government gets some of their money back, and there's monitoring to help them stay on the path to, being more normal, being functional, so on and so forth. Also, for the common person that winds up homeless because they missed a mortgage or whatever, the government needs to really do something about the complete inequality between what people are paid in wages, salaries, so on, compared to the cost of living. The cost of living shoots up more than what minimum wage will increase or whatnot.
Yeah.
And it becomes difficult because now for a person to rent a 1-bedroom apartment, it's almost $1,000.
In this
month.
area. Yeah, this area particularly.
Tacoma took second for the highest rental increase last year, even beat out San Francisco.
Beat San Francisco. Tacoma
We beat
did.
San Francisco for the highest rental hike in a single month.
Wow.
So,
You're talking about
coming
like an increase, right?
Yes.
Yeah.
The problem is it's becoming too expensive to live. You have to work 2 jobs to afford an apartment. And now you're paying for an apartment you spend almost no time at because you're constantly at work. Home to shower and sleep. That's it.
Yeah.
You have to rent a large apartment or whatever to do so. The government needs to really, do something about that diversity in income versus the cost of living. They need to match up more than they do. As far as drug addicts and everything, there's programs out there. Once they go through a program, get a sponsor, stay on the right track, get a job. It's possible. I had my own issues in my youth. Everybody's had issues. I've talked to many of people that I went to high school with. Found out some of them wound up in jail and did 15 years for, getting busted for drugs. And yet, when we knew them in school, they were highly intelligent. They looked like they were on the fast track to living at large. Everybody misstepped.
Yeah, and that's
Go
the
ahead,
thing.
Eric.
It can change in the blink of an eye. Like that's something people don't really think about often. And I do want to get back. Like I really want to reiterate. Like people, the homeless population are actual people that do need something, and if you have something you can give, whatever it might be, give it. Like we should be contributing. Like that's I think kind of the solution. Like you had mentioned, Rob, earlier, that a lot of these facilities don't have the resources to do the things that they really need to do. I mean, it's like even a few dollars coming out of everybody. If you contribute that, I mean that's a big deal to these places. So, yeah.
Yeah, and I definitely agree. We're probably going to do a show on this at some point, and in our economics sort of discussion about like minimum wage and cost of living and the middle class and all that stuff. That is definitely a problem that needs to be addressed in some manner. But it's like what you said, Eric, like the government is not going to do things swiftly.
No.
And we, the people, need to kind of at least be that Band-Aid and, pitch in to help out wherever we possibly can.
Yeah. And I think, even if you can personally do something, I've given to people directly to help them. And I don't know that that's always the best solution. Like if someone's asking for money, you shouldn't always give them money, but because that money isn't the answer to everything. Sometimes it's a place to live or work or whatever. Actually, we're kind of coming up on like a half an hour here, so but I want to throw this out there that I saw a really cool thing a few years ago. I was going to Federal Way for something, and I pulled up to off the freeway at the exit, and there was a guy holding a sign, and I thought, well, this guy's holding a sign, just saying, I'm hungry, need food, or some asking for money or whatever. But no, the sign said paintings, $5. And I looked down, and behind him were just a whole row of these paintings he did on cardboard and stuff, like they were just average kind of paintings, but he was asking for $5. And I was like, man, yeah, I'll buy one. Like, that is so cool. So yeah, there's always solutions there.
Yeah. I want to go back to something you said just now about, like, maybe it's not always a good idea to give money. I want to ask Rob something. Like, I've experienced this thing a few times where, like, I've had like a pretty fat amount on a Starbucks card, and I gave it to a homeless gentleman and said, hey, like, they've got some pastries at least and hot coffee. Like, it was like December, I was like, here you go, man. You need this more than I do. And he kind of seemed like, I don't know, I don't want to say ungrateful or anything like that, but it just seemed a little gruff about it. Do you feel when you get a handout, does it, like, I don't know, dehumanize you or anything? Does it feel negative in any way?
Honestly, I think it varies from person to person. Not everybody's going to react the same way. Then it also depends on how it's presented. A lot of times, like I said, there's a majority or a portion of the homeless that have mental issues. They don't interact the same way. Drug addicts, they would rather have money because they're going to say, well, I want to go get food, when in reality, they want to go get something.
Mm-hmm.
But that the common person would see that more as, something generous, and would stop and think, this person knows I'm homeless, and they're willing to give me something in the cold of winter to, be able to go in someplace warm, sit down, have something warm. It all depends on the person receiving, person. It can't. Yeah. We're just too varied to have one view of it.
Yeah.
I would like to add this, that we were talking about, things that would help. I think one of the biggest things that the homeless need of all other things is second.
Wait, is what?
Many of them that aren't drug addicts or alcoholics have criminal records, and nobody will hire them. They wind up remaining. You need programs much like the Animal Planet has a TV show called Pit Bulls and Parolees. This woman runs a animal shelter mostly for pit bulls. It does take in other dogs. She hires parolees, give them that second chance to turn their life.
Yeah,
That's what homeless need.
I want to. That actually like brings up a really good point that I'll probably get into at some point about being a felon or something and how it marks you for life. And I think if you served your time, that should be it. You should be done. But it does contribute to that issue that people end up homeless because they can't find a job because they've made mistakes in the past. And I think you should always have a second chance to do it differently with the lessons you've learned. Yeah.
Yep. Yeah, I definitely agree with that. There's like, it's unfortunate because there's this mentality that a lot of people have where they're like, I don't want to give any money because they're probably just going to turn around and buy drugs with it or something. And so there's probably a huge chunk of, you know, people that are actually just genuinely hungry and want to go buy food that are running into brick walls, I imagine, you know, like not
I
getting money anywhere.
I actually, yeah, I completely agree with that, and I think it would be important as somebody who's contemplating giving something to actually sit down and have a conversation with the person, which we should actually do a man on the street video and interview people
Yeah.
to get like a realistic view of what's going on there.
Now, a couple of years ago, I heard about this app, and I don't know what happened to it or if it's just in certain cities, but there was like this app where you could basically donate money to an account that was tied to a homeless person, and they could go like redeem food and stuff like that. Like, you know, if the I think if the business owner like had access to the app or something, you could be like, my account number is blah blah blah, and they'd be like, oh, okay, here's a cheeseburger. I think it was something like that, and I haven't really heard about it lately, but I thought that was like a brilliant idea, right?
To be honest, I never heard of that. So then again, I've managed to, you know, keep my job and a roof over my head for 2 years now. So
That's
good.
awesome.
I'm a little out of the loop, but I still know people in the loop, and so I still get, you know, some information about what the programs are still going with and whatnot.
Yeah, that app sounds like a really cool idea. Like if it doesn't exist anymore, it should probably be recreated because I think it'd be awesome. We're kind of approaching the a little bit of a long video here, so
Yeah, our producers are telling us to wrap it up, so but we're the producers, so
yeah.
Not a problem.
uh, but is there anything you want to plug, Rob, like a cause or a charity or even just like closing argument, like, you know, please do this to help your community? Is there anything you wanted to say in closing?
A couple of things. I really think we, the people of this United States, need to start taking more of an active role with our government. You know, government was created for the people, by the people, of the people, and is supposed to be looking out for us. And government's kind of turned a blind eye to us now. We had the incident in Seattle where their council board ignored a man trying to talk to him. We need, you know, to start holding our own government more accountable and try to get them back to where they were supposed to be, protecting us and helping us and looking after our best interest instead of corporations and whatnot. Also, you know, kind of a plug here for, you know, we need more programs like Maria Torres's Pit Bulls and Parolees. You know, something where a homeless person, where somebody with a criminal record can get that second chance to turn their life around. Everybody makes mistakes. You know, most people learn from them and try to avoid doing it. The only reason criminals wind up back in the system repeatedly is because nobody will give them.
Yeah.
That people throw up the wall and say, no, you have to stay on that side of the wall now. Like,
Yeah,
It
and
is
it's not
hard
just
for them.
mistakes, but there's accidents too. Like in your case, like your apartment went away, your job went away, and boom, you know.
Yep.
And it could happen to anybody.
Yeah.
Anybody.
Anybody, and that's the thing. Like, you should not look at people in that situation as any different than yourself.
Yeah.
So yeah, I think that's just about all the time we have today. Thank you very, very much, Rob, for being on the show. It was
Not a problem. It was a pleasure to do it, and hopefully this will help people kind of, see things in a different light, versus, the rose tinted, well, we need to deal with a problem when it's more of a side effect than a problem.
yeah, exactly. And we'll go deeper into that in the future. So yeah, so feel free to like and share and subscribe, all the good stuff. Comments, keep it going.
And let's have Rob pick a song on the way out.
Yeah, we'll have him do that. So enjoy the music on the way out, and everybody have a good day.